Good morning, YouTube. Today I wanted to give you a little update on the interior of the house. I've been grinding on the sheetrock for about 3 days now. I'm lucky enough to have a Christmas break. I'm a teacher, so I get a few days off from school, and I've just been hanging sheetrock the entire time. I've got basically the entire ceiling done and a few of the walls. Now, I've been doing this all by myself, and it's far from perfect. I'd highly recommend you get at least one more helping hand. I ordered all 12-foot sheets of sheetrock, 4x8 or 4x12, and I was able to borrow a sheetrock jack from a neighbor, which has been super helpful. I couldn't have done any of this without that. And then on the walls, typically you want to start at the top and work your way down, but since my ceilings are a little bit taller, I can't get sheets up there all by myself, so I just put a few on the bottom. I'd say I'm near the halfway point on finishing up the sheetrock. We got a bunch of snow last night, as you can tell in the background, but I'll give you a little walkthrough and show you how things are going. Alright, it's kind of a mess in here. I got the ceiling done. I'm in the kitchen now, up in the living room, it's all finished. Over in the bedrooms, they're all done. I haven't done anything in the bathrooms yet. I still have to do a bunch of plumbing work, so I've been kind of avoiding those. But this room is pretty close to being done. Just have that top couple feet there. Like I mentioned, it's difficult to get up there all by myself. Got the windows cut out. We're really liking these black windows, by the way. And we're debating on trimming them out in black or trimming them out in white. I think that we should do the sill and like this inside trim work in black, and then my wife thinks we should then picture frame it in white around the edges. But let me know what you guys think. The lighting's kind of bad in here, but the vinyl on the windows is all black. Yeah, it's been going pretty good. The project for today is going to be this big wall here. I'm going to try and get 2 sheets up across this whole wall and then over to that bedroom, and if that goes well, I'm going to also do this exterior wall around the window, the door, and then over where the cabinets are going to be over here. I also had a local carpenter let me borrow his scaffolding, which has been a lifesaver for this ceiling in here. It's 12 feet to the peak, so it's kind of a stretch getting up there, and that's been a huge helping hand. One other thing I wanted to mention that's been a massive help out here, especially when you're doing this by yourself, and I'm not sponsored in any way by DeWalt, I just love their stuff. I started with DeWalt and I continue to buy pretty much everything DeWalt. It just works that way with their batteries. But I bought this drywall gun, and it has the attachment where you can load in, I don't even know what you call them, clips of screws. And this thing is so handy. When you're by yourself, you can use one arm and hold the sheet up, and this one you can just basically auto feed screws in. And I'll show you kind of how it works here once I get a sheet hung up. But I've only had one clip, and I've gone through 2 huge boxes. I don't know what the count is on them, but it's probably close to 1,000 screws. Now I only had one issue with it so far, and that was when I was loading one of those clips of nails. I kind of kinked the plastic in there, so I think it was kind of binding when I was trying to feed, so that was all just user error. But that thing has been a huge lifesaver. And the other thing that's been working pretty good is I bought the DeWalt RotoZip, and I've been using that around the windows and outlets. If you remember in my electrical video, I pre-measured all of the outlets and lights. So I don't pre-cut the holes for the outlets. I just hang the sheet up, take my measurement, and then run this RotoZip around. And it's taken some getting used to. My cuts are far from perfect. Some of them are entirely too big, and I'll have to fill in a little bit of mud to patch them up. But I'm not a professional here. This is like the second time I've done any drywall work, and I'm just showing you what's been working well for me. So this RotoZip and that auto-feeding drywall screw gun have been a huge lifesaver. So I'm getting ready to start on the main wall here. And what I've been using that's been working really well for me is I lay down a couple sheets of just scrap sheetrock on the floor just like this, up against the wall. And that gives me a 1/2 inch spacer between the sheetrock and the floor. you know, the sheetrock could wick up moisture from the concrete. So laying this down gives me a 1/2 inch gap no matter what, and it's just really easy. I just slide these along as I go. And I'll come in here and I'll set the sheet on these planks here. I'll fasten the top run of screws and sometimes the top 2 runs of screws. And then I'll go and cut out my outlets. And on the concrete in my electrical video, you saw that I mark the concrete wherever I have a receptacle box or a switch box. So I just, before I hang the sheet, I just make sure all my measurements are there and that I didn't miss anything, because you don't want to accidentally hide one of these outlets and then have to find it later on. So just double check everything before you start to mount your sheetrock. Yeah, I'll load up that sheet, set it in here, and then I'll show you how that screw gun works here. So I just hook this screw gun on my pocket or on my belt here. I'll get this piece of drywall exactly where I want it, then I'll start tacking it along. And like I said, when you're working with only one hand, this would be super difficult to try and load a screw onto your drill or impact and then start screwing it in. So this is just a one-hand operation and it works really well. So I'm going to slide this over to the edge. Make sure I'm nice and flush with this opening. It doesn't get any easier than that, you guys. Super impressed with this. I can't speak enough about it. You're probably sick of me talking about it already, but I couldn't have done all this by myself without this. So I'm going to run one more line of screws and then I'll show you how I cut out the outlet boxes. All right, so from my mark on the concrete here, I'm just going to take my tape measure. My center of the outlets are all at 20 inches. I make my mark, kind of make a little hole right where it's going to go. Definitely want safety glasses for this. This drywall can be brutal. But basically, what I do is I puncture the hole. I like to make a small hole to start and just to make sure I can feel that outlet, that I wasn't off on my measurement and that I didn't miss my mark. And then I find the edge of the outlet from the inside, lift up, go around to the outside and then trace the perimeter. Now there is a stud right here on this side of the outlet box and sometimes I hit that stud with my bit and it throws me off a little bit, but for the most part this works pretty darn good. And there you go. You could probably see how that drywall kind of just popped right in, and that way you know you have the perfect fit. This one was pretty darn good, but if you do get a little bit wonky with this, it's not the end of the world. You can patch it with some mud and some of that mesh tape. Make sure you do patch those, because otherwise when you go to hang your face cover for your outlet or your switch, you're going to see that gap there and it's going to look really bad. So make sure you patch if you do make any mistakes. I'm going to go ahead and punch through all the rest of these and I'll probably just give you an update once and if I finish this wall up today. So hope you've been enjoying this and I hope it's helpful to anybody that wants to attempt drywall. Like I said in the beginning, I'm far from a professional, but this is what's been working for me.